On April 3, 2016, a bombshell was dropped that would shake the foundations of the global elite. Over 2.6 terabytes of data, of which 11.5 million documents were leaked by an anonymous source and revealed to the entire world thanks to one of the most incredible journalistic efforts in history. This is how the Panama Papers revealed how the wealthy covered billions of dollars from the world. It all began in late 2014, when an anonymous source known only as John Doe contacted German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung. Their claim access to the internal files of Mossack Fonseca, a Panamanian law firm founded in 1977 by German lawyer Jürgen Mossack, later joined by Ramon Fonseca and Swiss lawyer Christoph Zollinger. Its purpose was to create shell companies for exclusive customers who needed a way to hide their wealth. These companies were used to evade taxes and facilitate corruption. The documents leaked connected to more than 200,000 of them based in over 200 different countries. But how did they work? First, a wealthy individual or entity hires a law firm or intermediary such as Mossack Fonseca to create a shell company in a jurisdiction with strict privacy laws, as they don't require public disclosure of ownership, making it impossible to trace who really controls the company. These are often referred to as tax havens, and the most famous are Panama, the British Virgin Islands, and the Cayman Islands. A shell company is an empty legal entity. It doesn't have physical operations, employees, or significant assets. Its sole purpose is to exist on paper as a separate person under the law. The individual, however, does not list themselves as the owner of the shell company. Instead, the law firm has two ways of masking the actual owner. One way is through nominee directors. These are individuals paid to appear as the owners or managers of the company in legal documents. They have no actual control of the company, but their names are listed in official records. The other way is through trust structures. These are used to further obscure ownership, as the shell company might be owned by another shell company, often based in a different tax haven. Or they could use both. This creates a layered, convoluted structure that makes tracing ownership nearly impossible. Now, once the shell company is established, the individual transfers money or assets to it. This could be cash deposits, real estate, or shares, for example. The anonymous whistleblower approached Süddeutsche Zeitung with a simple message.
Hello, this is John Doe. Interested in data?
We're very interested.
There are a couple of conditions. My life is in danger. We will only chat over encrypted files. No meetings, ever. The choice of stories is obviously up to you.
Why are you doing this?
I want to make these crimes public.
How much data are we talking about?
More than anything you have ever seen.
This cryptic and direct offer marked the beginning of what would become a monumental journalistic effort, as the data was so vast and complex that Süddeutsche Zeitung quickly realized it couldn't handle the investigation alone. The numbers were staggering. 11.5 million documents, 2.6 terabytes of data, over 140 politicians and public officials exposed, including 12 current or former world leaders. The documents painted a comprehensive picture of how Mossack Fonseca operated. It didn't just expose individual wrongdoings though, it also reflected the structural flaws in the global financial system. In a manifesto titled "The Revolution Will Be Digitized," published after the leak, John Doe explained their motivations. They believed that the global financial system was rigged to benefit the wealthy and powerful at the expense of ordinary people.
I decided to expose Mossack Fonseca because I thought its founders, employees, and clients should have to answer for their roles in these crimes, only some of which have come to light thus far.
The documents were a wake-up call about the system itself, where banks, law firms, and accountants, entities that are supposed to uphold the rules, were actively helping their clients bend or break them.
The horrific magnitude of detriment to the world should shock us all awake. It signals that democracy's checks and balances have all failed, that the breakdown is systemic, and that severe instability could be just around the corner.
The Panama Papers made all of this painfully clear. They showed us how interconnected the system is, but perhaps the most troubling flaw is the normalization of this behavior. For many people in power, using offshore accounts isn't seen as unethical, it's just how the game is played. Once they verified the leaks, investigations officially began. A monumental undertaking was now in motion, and the journalists at Süddeutsche Zeitung found themselves at the center of something far bigger than they had ever imagined. They weren't looking at a handful of documents or a few suspicious transactions. They were staring at an unprecedented trove of data. But these weren't just any documents. These were records detailing the intricate ways in which money flowed unseen across borders, bypassing tax authorities and regulators. Hidden within these files were offshore accounts, shell companies, and complex legal structures, all designed to keep assets out of sight. The leak was unlike anything seen before, exposing an entire shadow economy built for those who could afford to play by a different set of rules. This was simply too big for one newspaper to handle alone. There were too many names, too many companies, and too many transactions to investigate within the limits of their own newsroom. If they wanted to do justice to this story, they would need help. And so, in 2015, they turned to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, a highly respected network of reporters. This was no ordinary collaboration. The ICIJ was an elite collective bringing together more than 160 journalists from over 65 different countries. Other reporters didn't come from small, obscure publications. They were some of the most respected names in journalism, representing The Guardian, Le Monde, BBC, Panorama, and over 100 other media organizations from around the world. This was an operation of an unprecedented scale, an alliance of journalists who, rather than competing for exclusivity, chose to work together in secret, united by a single purpose: to uncover the truth and bring it to the world. For more than a year, this global team of investigative reporters painstakingly analyzed the leaked data. They didn't just skim for a few documents, they pored over millions of emails, contracts, bank statements, and client records. But with such high stakes, there was always danger. The mysterious whistleblower behind the leak had made one thing absolutely clear: their identity must never be revealed. Their safety depended on it, and to this day, no one knows who John Doe really is. Meanwhile, the journalists working on the investigations faced their own ethical dilemmas. With so much information at their disposal, they had to make careful decisions about what to publish and what to withhold. Some of the names in documents belonged to ordinary individuals who had done nothing wrong. Others had used offshore accounts legally with no intent to deceive. It was a delicate balance, and the reporters had to tread carefully. Every choice they made had to be guided by one principle: the public interest. They sought to hold accountable those who had abused the system, those who had used their wealth and influence to engage in corruption, tax evasion, and financial misconduct. One of the main names that were involved in the Panama Papers was Vladimir Putin. He and his associates, including his childhood friend Sergei Raldogen, moved approximately $2 billion through offshore accounts. The funds were allegedly linked to money laundering and were used to enrich Putin's inner circle while maintaining secrecy. Another big name is one of Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson, Prime Minister of Iceland, as he and his wife secretly owned an offshore company, Winters Incorporated, which held millions of dollars in bonds from Icelandic banks. He failed to disclose his financial ties to banks his government was negotiating with after Iceland's financial crisis. Another prime minister involved was the Pakistan one. Nawaz Sharif got disqualified from office by Pakistan Supreme Court in 2017 and later convicted of corruption after purchasing luxury apartments in London through offshore companies. So it's clear that a lot of people involved were politicians, but it doesn't end there. Lionel Messi was named as the co-owner of an offshore company, Megastar Enterprises, used to manage image rights. Through this company, however, he failed to declare income and was accused of tax evasion. This costed him and his father millions of euros in fines for tax fraud. The former UEFA president Michael Platini was also one of the names involved, as he used an offshore company to manage his income, avoid paying taxes, but most importantly, to obscure financial dealings. On April 3, 2016, the Panama Papers were publicly unveiled in a coordinated global release. The revelations were explosive. Protests erupted in various countries and governments faced immense pressure to respond. Media outlets continued to analyze and publish new revelations over the following weeks and months, keeping the issue in the global spotlight.